Hey there, it's Kimberly Lucht, and today I want to talk a little bit about how to have difficult conversations with your loved ones, whether that's family or friends or your partner or your children. It's something that a lot of us are not super versed in, whether that's because we've avoided conflict or we haven't just been able to approach it in a loving way. It can get messy really quickly, and I think there's a lot of people in our lives that sometimes require a gentle conversation with to clear some stuff up and make sure that none of us are making assumptions and just make sure that all the feelings are out on the table. Yet some of us are not super versed in how to do that in an effective way and how to do it in a way that's both loving but also clear and honest and reflective of our needs. And so if you struggle with this, and I know all of us do at some point in our lives, there has been or will be a time where we're like, what do I say? Even for people like me that can't stop talking sometimes, what do you say? What do you do? What do you come forward with? What kinds of energies do you bring to the table? What kinds of emotions do you bring to the table? And I want to set us up for success in these conversations so that they don't go in a way that just doesn't feel open for you. I think openness is a big part of this and being open to receiving critique or feedback. And I gotta say, I went through this really recently with a friend of mine who came to me telling me certain things that I was unaware of in our friendship, in our relationship, feelings that she had been holding on to for years and things that she had been keeping inside and bottling up in a way that wasn't healthy for her. And I had to come into this position of I had no idea. I felt some energetics around it, but I was not clear on the specifics. And I had to take a back seat and really look back on myself and be like, what part of this is my side of the street? And so I want to detail a few things that I did in that conversation that I think could really help you if you have any sort of conversations like that, whether in the future or if you're processing one that you've had in the past. I think these things are really going to help. And so the first thing that I did in that conversation was remain grounded. And so that can be really difficult when somebody is bringing to light some of the things that maybe you don't like about yourself, or maybe you forgot about, or wow, I didn't realize that was an issue or a problem. And it can be really difficult to hear feedback, even if it is honest, even if it is loving. And so remaining grounded really means coming back to your body and just noticing what it feels like to receive it. And so for example, for me, my stomach felt like it was churning, like I felt like my body was kind of like a little weaker than normal, like it didn't feel good necessarily to receive that feedback. But what it did do for me was remind me wow, my body is always speaking, and that grounded me in the moment. And coming back to the body of you are safe, right? Like telling your body it's safe to receive this feedback, it's safe to receive this critique, especially if it's coming from a loving place, right? Like there's moments when it's not loving and you can sense the difference, and it's definitely a visceral difference. Like you can feel when someone's throwing stuff your way just because they want to hurt you or upset you. And there's a really clear difference between someone who wants to do that and someone who wants to resolve or to communicate in a loving way, right? And so stay grounded. That's tip number one. Tip number two is to speak lovingly and honestly. This can be harder than it sounds. I know, easier said than done, but it's something that I think is overlooked. And a lot of us can resort to defensiveness or even attack. When there's somebody who comes to us with something, it can feel really unsettling. And our instinct sometimes, our immediate reaction sometimes is to get defensive or to attack in return. And I'm gonna challenge you, if that's you or even if that's not you, to stay as loving and open and honest as possible. And so that might look like you listen really receptively and you just nod your head and you're trying to take it in, right? You're trying to make space for that person to feel heard. And at the same time, it can feel like when you say stuff and when you respond versus react, right? Like reacting is more "Rah," and responding can be more from a loving, gentle place. When you respond, making sure that your words, you're not lying or withholding any information, but you're speaking with love and you're speaking with honesty and openness. I think that's one of the beautiful things about having really solid people in your life is like they're able to do that and to come to you with love and honesty and openness. And even if that's not the case, you can still be in that space yourself. And so let's say a friend comes to you and it's like the energy is a little like, whoa, it's a little out of control, but you can still maintain on your end the love and the honesty and the openness that you would like to receive from somebody else, right? So doing what you personally would want to experience is something that I think can really help us here, like doing unto others what you would like to be done to yourself. Typical Bible school stuff that I still remember. And yeah, definitely don't practice that anymore, but I see the value in that. And I think that it's something that we can bring more of into these types of conversations of like doing the things or saying the things that you wish somebody was able to do for you or with you. I think that that's really loving and giving if it's not coming from a space of people pleasing or like overriding yourself. And so having that as kind of the backbone of your energetics during the conversation can really, really help. And like everything coming from this space of love, making sure that your heart space feels open enough to give that. And of course, if it doesn't, not blaming yourself or shaming yourself for that. I think that we have to be honest with ourselves about how we feel and like how we're responding in the moment. And coming back to the conversation if we need to take a moment to love yourself first, and then come back into a conversation to be loving to another. There's a lot of ways to do this, but I invite you to just stay open. And again, if it's not a toxic, abusive situation, I think it's really healthy to stay in the love energy, even if it's hard, even if it's difficult. The third tip is to ask open questions. And so this can actually be a little difficult sometimes because we either feel like we have to be responding, sometimes reacting, or even just like listening and taking it all in. But really what can be super helpful is to ask questions about the things that the other person is saying. And so let's say you said, I was really upset when XYZ happened. I'm like, that's so interesting. What about that do you feel upset you the most? Or how could we plan in the future to have a situation that's different? Or what are the things that you think are the through lines of all of these experiences? Like, what do you think is the most common line or common denominator of all of these things that you think could be looked at? Those types of questions are really interesting to hear the responses to, and it's also really interesting to ask. And if you're on the receiving end of a question like that, it's so cool to think about it and to actually process what that answer might be. Giving space like that to somebody else is such a gift, and hopefully is seen by the other person as, wow, she's really holding space for me, or she's really giving me the space to process this. And if that's the case, there's way more likely going to be a resolution in the future, even if it's not the same day, because you care to ask the most curious, open-ended questions that you have to that person, even when it's difficult, even when it hurts, and even when you are feeling maybe a little defensive or attacked. Even in those scenarios, you can still ask really, really good questions so that you're not making any assumptions about their feelings and their emotions and their energy and the situation at hand. So I really hope that this helps. And if you want more guidance with this, please comment below with any questions or anything that you want me to expand on. I'm happy to talk about this. Of course, this is like a recent thing for me. It's not very common for me to have these types of conversations with friends of mine. Usually the channels of communication are pretty clear, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes we need to do a tune-up. And I think it's really healthy to do that with the people that you care about the most. And so if you love this video, I think you'll really love the videos that I send every single week to my email list. And if you want to get into that inbox party, go ahead and go to my website, sign up for my email list, and you'll get them in your inbox automatically. Every single week, such an inbox party. And if you want to sign up for that, link is down below. You just put in your email and you're good to go. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video. Until next time, ciao for now. Bye.